Hey y'all, welcome back to XL Wargaming, where today we're going to be talking about Harlequins, specifically in a couple battle reports against the Death Guard in the Virulent Vectorium detachment. So the list we're bringing today is a little bit different than what we're used to. While it has the core foundations of our double brick list, that Troop Master with Coil and Shadow Seer, both attached to an 11-man unit, we also have two more Troop Masters inside of two Star Weavers and the Solitaire to round out the Harlequin side. I wanted to try a couple different Craft World counterparts to adjust for the new meta. I'm not entirely sure if this is the specific list we would be running. This is a little bit more of an experiment moving forward, but I definitely thought it was worth a try. So to round it out, we have Fugan and 2 units of Fire Dragons, all of which will be inside of a Wave Serpent, and then we have the Autarch and Howling Banshees. These 2 extra units, the Banshees and Fugan, seem like they might be pretty great. To round it all out, we have our standard few units of Corsairs and a unit of Rangers. Now this list is very tight, coming in at 14 total units, maybe 15 if you want to run Fugan solo at 1990 points. We are light on trash, but big on damage and lethality. Now our opponent is bringing a traditional death card list, something we're going to see pretty much everywhere, utilizing the Virulent Vectorium detachment. He has a Demon Prince with Revolting Regeneration. That means he has a 2+, 4+ invulnerable, and a 5+ feel no pain, and I believe he's toughness 12 as well. This unit is often considered mini Mortarion. He can also reduce the cost of a CP, and he has 3-inch lone op as long as he's within range of someone around him. He's bringing a Lord of Contagion with the Furnace of Plagues, I believe, attached to a unit of Deathshroud Terminators, a Lord of Virulence with the Arch Contaminator. I believe he gets to reroll wounds on objectives attached to another unit of Deathshroud Terminators, and then he's bringing a Biologist Putrefier and a Malignant Plague Caster attached to a 10-man unit of Plague Marines with 3 heavy weapons, a bunch of plasma and blight launchers inside of a Rhino. That unit gets lethal and sustained hits on 5s. It'll pretty much wipe out anything on the board, and I believe there's a stratagem that can do a hefty amount of damage for either rerolling hits or wounds as well. To round out their list, they have 2 more units of Plague Marines inside of another Chaos Rhino, 3 Fetid Bloat Drones with heavy blight launchers, 2 Mephitic Blight Haulers, and 2 units of 10 Poxwalkers. They are coming in at 15 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. It is insane to see how much Death Guard can put on the table with all of their durability, their movement, their damage capacity, and then see what we're able to do with something like Harlequins. It really makes me feel like GW kind of hates Harlequins just a little bit. But that's all the salt you'll get from me today. Now, I had the opportunity to get a couple games in over the course of a week against Death Guard, and we're going to be highlighting both of them. The first game was Mission J, Linchpin, Search and Destroy on GW Terrain Layout 2. Now, getting into deployment, we did get to deploy first, and we put our Shadow Seer brick right here to just try and push out the Poxwalkers a little bit off of or outside of our deployment zone. So what it ended up doing is it pushed our opponent to put the Poxwalkers over here. I'm not sure that this was the best call. I think maybe he should have just let this home field get stickied and then screen the board with all of the Poxwalkers to begin with. But he did end up kind of lining this rune so we can't drop off a whole bunch of Fire Dragons afterwards. So there is definitely that. But overall, this unit of troops can just push up towards the first turn in the game and get towards this center objective, or maybe charge this rune. We have a unit of Corsairs up here to push off towards this objective, and then our Wave Serpent with the Fire Dragons, safe and sound back here, able to push up as well and drop off whoever needs to get out in the early turns of the game. This was all pre-measured ahead of time. And then we have 2 units of troops inside the Star Weavers just to kind of react to wherever they need to go. If we want to come down here or we want to move towards the center, we absolutely can. And then the unit of Howling Banshees with the Autarch just backing up this Shadow Seer brick as well. To round out the list, we have 5 Rangers on the home field objective and a unit of Corsairs to just push towards this section of the board and hold our natural expansion. Our opponent ended up deploying pretty much to how we expected. He really only had a couple options due to our mobility, and that was either hide everything far enough back where it can't do anything, and then we're going to score a whole bunch on turn 1, or kind of position a little bit more defensively and hope that he can meet the damage check that we're going to be putting on him. And he opted for this. So we have a Rhino down here with 2 units of Plague Marines, a Mephitic Blight Hauler, and a Heavy Bloat Drone. We have the Demon Prince, a unit of Poxwalkers in the center, just blocking out this wall from dropping off Fire Dragons. The unit of 10 Plague Marines with sustained lethals and the Plague Caster and the Putrefier are right here in this Rhino, and then another Blight Hauler and Bloat Drone right here. The last Bloat Drone is behind cover with a unit of Poxwalkers holding the home field objective, and the Death Shroud Terminators with the Lords are both in strategic reserve. Now we win the dice roll and absolutely get to go first. While in most matchups I would prefer to go second, with a list like this, I think first has so many advantages. We draw area denial and cleanse. We're easily going to get area denial just by pushing up a Star Weaver and some troops to get out. But we're going to end up ditching cleanse to get some extra command points. This unit of Void Reavers starting from the top ended up scouting, getting over here, and can get off a blaster shot if it really needs. We also have our big unit of Harlequin troops with Chegarax Coil making its way up here. The Wave Serpent ends up using a token to get some extra movement and drops off both units of Fire Dragons over here to get some angles on all of this, and we blitz the Solitaire as well. The unit of troops inside of this Star Weaver that was right over here came out. We're going to disembark just to shoot some fusion pistols and whatever else to get some extra damage, and they're going to hop back in at the end. And then we advance the Banshees and Autarch all the way up here, and the Shadow Seer brick as well, to get into combat with everything we see over here. The final Star Weaver with the Troop Master is going to push and just stage for the following turn, and then the Void Reavers are going to get onto this objective and make sure that we are scoring as much primary as we can in the early game. I did not know exactly how many units we were going to be able to get in our opponent's line, but this is a lot. Our opponent had a couple options earlier on in the game, like we said, where they could have pushed everything back a little bit further, and if that was the case, that's fine. All we would have to do is put this brick right here behind this rune. They can still end up getting their 10 inches of movement later on in the game and coming out here, but the Wave Serpent and the Fire Dragons, especially with Fugan getting to increase their range, means that there's not many safe places for our opponent to hide. If they did want to come out and try to interact with us on the first turn of the game, everything that we had would have just been behind cover. I don't think they would have had a lot to interact with beyond that, and this would have just been delayed a single turn. In the shooting phase, we get to see exactly what we're capable of, what Fugan's going to bring to the table, and the Banshees as well. So, starting off at the top, we end up firing into the Mephitic Blight Hauler, which explodes and kills a few of our Fire Dragons. One of these, the Exarch, took a wound. The Solitaire took a wound. He took 3 wounds on the Poxwalkers. The Rhino took, I believe, 2 or 3 as well, and Fugan was able to bring that down after we split fire. This rest of these Fire Dragons here ended up putting some shots into the Demon Prince and this Blight Hauler or Bloat Drone, and are able to bring that down to just 3 wounds. The Star Weaver and the troops over here are able to bring the Demon Prince down to, I believe, 6 wounds remaining. And then everything else that we had, our troops, our Star Weavers, everything, put some firepower into this unit of Plague Marines, and they're able to bring down, I believe, 3 or 4 of them. A few of them, or one of them, or 2, got lost on the disembark. So we were able to do a pretty hefty amount in the shooting phase up here on this section of the board. I think the Blaster even put in some shots into, maybe it was a Blight Hauler after this, but the Howling Banshee Banshees and the Autarch were able to throw a grenade over here and get this Rhino down to just 2 wounds remaining. So if we can charge and bring it down, we can use the pile-ins to get everything else into either the Plague Marines that disembark or the Blight Hauler and the Bloat Drone afterwards. This was a phenomenal shooting phase. In the charge phase, we used Tank Shock to get this Wave Serpent in on the Fetid Bloat Drone, and we are able to bring that down. Fugan stays put. They can't go anywhere, and the other unit of Fire Dragon stays put as well. The Chegarex Coil unit ends up going into the Poxwalkers, and unfortunately, we were not able to bring all of them down and then consolidate into the Demon Prince. So we are going to get kind of tied up here, but after combat, we can tag whatever we need to. And then the Solitaire pushes into the big unit of Plague Marines and is able to bring down, I believe, just 3 of them. That toughness 6 and -1 to hit on everything that we have is kind of ridiculous. Something else to note on this turn is that we are not using +1 to wound on any of this. Up here, we are very easily going to do -1 to hit, knowing that we want to tag everything our opponent has, and they're going to clap back into us. Down here, we are able to bring down the Rhino with the Banshees, and then the Solitaire or the Shadow Seer Brick is going to consolidate into everything else. Our opponent did have to use emergency disembark to get these guys out, and fortunately he was able to, but did lose a couple Plague Marines, I believe 1 or 2 from this squad down here, and then 1 in this unit up here as well. The fightbacks weren't exactly what our opponent was hoping for. We only ended up losing 1 of our Harlequin troops throughout all of this, 1 or 2. Because when we apply that -1 to hit, it makes all of these heavy plague weapons hit us on 5s. Everything else is hitting us on 4s. Even though they are wounding on 2s, we just make a good handful of 4+ saves. This Demon Prince ends up killing 3 or 4 of our Harlequin troops up here, and then the Solitaire walks away without any wounds taken afterwards. In our opponent's turn 1, they don't have much to move, and they don't have much to shoot, as everything is in combat. This Bloat Drone having blast means he's not shooting into this combat over here. He ends up firing some shots into the Wave Serpent that goes down to 7. This Bloat Drone as well tries to whittle away, I believe, some of the wounds on this Wave Serpent as well, and doesn't get much going. The Demon Prince fires into this unit with Fuegan, and they end up using Fade back to get into the Wave Serpent. And then everything else down here just takes some middling fire from the Mephitic Blight Hauler. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a Multi-Melta or a Bolter. Harlequins do not care. I would love if you've shot Multi-Meltas into them for the entire game. We lose a couple there. In the charge phase, he ends up moving the Poxwalkers into this unit of Fire Dragons. They do not fall. 3+ saves are pretty good, and we are able to kill 2 of the Poxwalkers in return. The Demon Prince goes ham into our Chegarex Coil Brick and brings down another 5 of them, even with -1 to hit. The Shadow Seer, or the Solitaire, I apologize, is able to bring down the remaining Plague Marines, and now it's just the characters, the Malignant Plaguecaster and the Biologist Putrefier. So we have a couple guys left here with Chegarex Coil, but we're going to do okay. Down here, we are able to bring down all of the Plague Marines, but 1 in this squad. The Banshees are able to bring down all of the Plague Marines in the back squad, and I think the Blight Hauler and the Bloat Drone survived. In the shooting phase, we are able to bring down the Demon Prince with our unit of troops, some fusion pistols, maybe some grenades, and Fugan and these Fire Dragons. We also bring down this Bloat Drone in the back. This Bloat Drone over here gets brought down by fusion pistols and all of our troops, and then this other unit of troops is able to come in, and we're going to finish off the Blight Hauler afterwards. We score 5 points on Marked for Death, 5 on Tempting Target, and a good bit of primary over the course of the entirety of this game. In the charge phase, we pick up literally every other model on the table. All our opponent has is 2 units of Death Shroud Terminators in Deep Strike to combat us for the remainder of the game. This unit of troops is going to get back inside of this Star Weaver. This big unit of Harlequin troops could get back inside of this Wave Serpent if he wants to move towards them, or we can use Fade back as well. We have 2 of our Fire Dragons down here. We have Fugin's unit up here, and then this unit of troops could get back into this Star Weaver. So in our opponent's following turn, they don't have much that they can do to interact with us. Yes, they can take our natural expansion for a turn or our home field objective for a turn, but we're going to hold the board for the remainder of the game, and those Death Shroud Terminators are going to be forced to just sit on those objectives. The game at this point is pretty much over. Even if he wanted to try and interact with us, he's got to chew through the transports first because of all of the re-embarks, and unfortunately I don't believe their flamers are going to do nearly as much as they're hoping for into these. He's going to have to charge, and then he's going to get clapped back with absolutely everything we have if he gets anywhere close to this section of the board. So it was a pretty wild game. It was over in, I believe, about 45 minutes, and most of it was deployment and us just rolling dice through turn 1. So our opponent packed it up, and if we ran the score for the remainder of the game, we would have walked away the victor 99-23. In game 2, we'll be playing Mission C, which is Linchpin, tipping point style deployment on GW Terrain Layout 1, my absolute favorite mission and map. Now, getting into deployment, our opponent learned his lesson from the last game. He gets to deploy first and gets these Poxwalkers strung across the entire mid board. This keeps our Shadow Seer brick from being able to move up here. It also keeps our Corsairs back from being able to scout too far up earlier on in the game. But this was the first unit he placed down in the board. What we ended up doing afterwards is positioning the Shadow Seer brick down here. It's the only thing that we can do at this point in the game, but we are that 9.1 inches away. So if we really wanted to, if he wants to push towards this objective here, we can utilize Bloody Dance and just wipe out this entire Poxwalker unit. As well, if our opponent wants to push this unit forward, we can use Bloody Dance with the Solitaire as well to make sure we're whittling down any of their forces before they can do any sort of effective move block. Now, I unfortunately did not get a picture before we started the first turn, so we went back. This Rhino and the Blight Hauler were positioned back here originally. Everything else is pretty much just using some form of symmetry on his side. He has a Rhino with 2 units of Plague Marines over here, 2 Bloat Drones back here, a Blight Hauler, and a Demon Prince all back here with a unit of Poxwalkers just kind of lining this wall. Otherwise, we have a Bloat Drone, a Hauler, and the Rhino with the big 10-man brick of Plague Marines with all the good stuff in the midboard. And then, as always, the Death Shroud Terminators are in reserve. On our side of the board, we want to be able to respond to our opponent if he pushes everything up pretty quick, but we also want to be able to stage appropriately if we get first turn. So we have the Banshees and the Autarch over here. If we really wanted to, we can advance the Shadow Seer brick and still take up this section of the board earlier on and support them with Bloody Dance and Heroic Intervention, but I don't really see our opponent diving in with a whole bunch of melee units to make this happen. So we'll probably separate the Banshees and the Solitaire in this game. Unfortunately, we cannot fit the Wave Serpent back here and still get out of this terrain because of these giant fins. So he is back here with the Fire Dragons and Fugin. If we get that first turn, we're just most likely going to stage this up here in the mid board, and then we would use the Shadow Seer brick to just kind of move block everything we can into their deployment zone, and everything else that we have would end up pushing up beyond this. We have the Star Weavers positioned to come out and support wherever they need to go, and then Corsairs able to scout and get on objectives or just screen the board from our opponent's 6-inch deep strike from the Death Shroud Terminators. That is crucially important. Hopefully throughout the first couple turns of this game, we'll be able to keep that 6-inch deep strike down, or at least on our opponent's backfield. But overall, we just want to be able to position to either be safe if we go second or collapse if we go first. Now our opponent wins the turn 1 dice roll and does get to go first this game. I am very happy about it. I want to see what we can do on defense into a list like this. Everything pretty much pushes up towards this section of the board. He ends up moving the Poxwalkers out over here with an advance. These objectives get stickied, so we are out of range of Bloody Dance, which is good on him. We talked about it before the game, and then just wants to line all of this so that we can't drop off dragons or bring in all of our troops or the Star Weaver troops to disembark on this side of the wall, get some free shots in afterwards. So these Poxwalkers end up just moving up. He draws Tempting Target and Assassination, and we choose this bottom objective as the tempting target. So he is not going to score anything on secondaries for his first turn. He ends up moving up this Rhino and a unit of Plague Marines out here. This unit got out, moved up. We used a reactive move and got our Shadow Seer Brick back here. So this is a very long charge. I think we got it to like a 10-inch charge. And then this Rhino is going to push up and use some of its firepower to shoot into these guys. And they are able to bring down 3 of them. There's a Blight Hauler just kind of moving out to get some shots or angles over here as well, and then everything else just kind of stays positioned right here. What we want to try to do is interact with this brick as soon as possible in the midboard. Now, in the charge phase, our opponent makes an 11-inch charge into our Shadow Seer brick with his 5-man bare bone unit of Death Guard. I did not expect that. I don't think he expected it, but if they do some damage, they are going to be able to get those 5 points on Tempting Target. Unfortunately for our opponent, they only end up killing 1 of our Harlequin troops, so we're down 4 from where they began with, but 2 of his guys get wiped out to Hazardous, and the unit is able to pick up the remaining 3, which is pretty good for us. We applied -1 to hit, and unfortunately, it puts his heavy weapons on 5s, and not many things connected to begin with. All we needed to do was make just a couple 4-up saves, and we were in really, really great shape. So this is mistake number 1 right here from our opponent. I don't think he would do that again if he had an opportunity to take it back. It makes sense, but you never know what's going to happen in some of these games. In our turn 1, we take the opportunity to do as much damage as possible to our opponent's forces down here on this section of the board. The Wave Serpent moves up, Fugan and some Fire Dragons get out. They're able to bring down this Rhino. The Star Weaver moves up, disembarks some of its troops, and they put some shots in as well. They're just going to re-embark afterwards. The Howling Banshees come up and line this section of the wall, and then the Solitaire moves up to take this objective back from our opponent. This Star Weaver ends up putting some really good shots into these Plague Marines, but the Rhino does explode and kills quite a few of our troops. I believe he may have used a stratagem to make that happen as well. Explosions against Harlequin troops is ridiculous. So we do surround this Rhino itself. Our goal is to just tie up our opponent's Poxwalkers, maybe get into the remaining few Plague Marines and tie up this Bloat Drone as well. Those blast weapons do not allow it to shoot inside of combat. Down here, this unit of Harlequin troops gets up, just moves their natural movement after disembark, is going to put some shots into the Poxwalkers. A unit of Corsairs that was behind this wall is just going to advance up and over and try to throw a blaster into this. We did draw Recover Assets and Extend Battle Lines, so we are going to get rid of Recover Assets. We're typically getting rid of 1 of our first turn secondaries just to get an extra CP as long as we can, and then everything else is just going to continue to push forward. So what we wanted to do with these Corsairs is keep our opponent from getting any great angles down this section of the board, and we also wanted to push back their Death Shroud Terminators as far as possible. So we have the big Chegrax Coil Brick right here. We have the Rangers over here. All of this is blocked. Same thing back here with these Corsairs. We are blocked, and then we have our Banshees and our Wave Serpent and all of this. There is nowhere for these Terminators to drop unless he wanted to come towards this specific section of the board right here. In the charge phase, we just move the Harlequin troops up and in to get into combat with the Poxwalkers. They are very easily able to bring them down. He does not heroic intervention. I think it may have been smart to do this possibly with the Rhino, but maybe his thought is that they're just going to bring everything down over here afterwards. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't do that. Looking at the board now, I 100% would have done that to keep these guys in combat with something. But down here, the Shadow Seer brick goes in. We clean up all but one of the Poxwalkers, and we are able to bring down both of these Plague Marines. And then we ignore the Bloat Drone. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the models after the explosion. But we are able to consolidate some guys onto this objective. In our opponent's turn 2, they draw Sabotage and no prisoners, but score a 0 on primary because the Shadow Seer brick was able to get back here and hold just enough to tie the objective from the Blight Hauler and the Bloat Drone. So that's everything we want our Shadow Seer to do. This brick, just hold our opponent in their deployment zone, steal some points, and make them dedicate extra resources to it afterwards. Up top here, the Bloat Drone moves to this top objective to get a nice angle onto our Star Weaver. The Terminators, the Death Shroud, come down over here. They lay waste to the Corsairs, but we do pop smoke on our opponent's Bloat Drone when it first activated over here to get him hitting on 4s. He used a stratagem to re-roll the number of blast dice that he could have used, but unfortunately I think he rolled a 2 into a 2 and just wasn't able to make this a reality, which forced this Bloat Drone down here to fire into it as well, and it saved our Harlequin troops from getting shot at afterwards. Our opponent may have wanted to bring these unit of Plague Marines up front here to put some fire into them, but if he did, he would be exposing them to our Chegarex coil brick with grenades and 5 fusion pistols and everything that comes with it afterwards. On top of that, they would have been in easy range of the Banshees that could have just advanced and charged and wiped them out afterwards. So I don't know if this was the right call or the wrong call, but I do know that these troops survived into the fight phase. This Blight Hauler over here came in and put some shots into the Solitaire. We made the saves. He missed both of the plasmas, and then we used our Agile token to fade back and get him to safety. Down here, the Shadow Seer brick is completely wiped out by the Bloat Drone and the Blight Hauler. I think we just had the Shadow Seer remaining. In our turn 2, we score 8 points in primary and get Storm Hostile Objective and Defend Stronghold. We are going to ditch Defend Stronghold again to get a command point. We are super command point reliant in this game so far. I just want to make sure we have all the resources we need, especially if I'm going to have to throw grenades. So this unit of troops over here ends up pushing up and throws grenades into this Rhino. We also try to put some fusion pistols in as well, and I'm pretty sure almost everything bounced. So they didn't get to do a whole bunch over there, but they did use the no Overwatch Agile token. The Chegarex coil brick comes out here as well, and then the Wave Serpent that was back here pushes up towards this midfield objective. Fugin's unit gets out. This still has a unit of Fire Dragons in it. Our Wave Serpent down here lets our troops out to go engage into this Bloat Drone and continue abusing our opponent on their home field objective. And the Star Weaver sits tight. We are still screening everything we can. That's why we didn't want to push this unit up afterwards. Our opponent does still have a unit to rapid ingress. The Howling Banshees are going to advance. The Autarch gets into range right here and puts some shots into, I believe, one of the Bloat Drones, and then the Solitaire uses its blitz to get back here as well. So we have the Shadow Seer died to the Mephitic Blight Hauler charging the last turn. But we have a unit of troops with a Troop Master over here, a Solitaire, and the Banshees and the Autarch to just try to tackle whatever we can. This unit with the fusion pistols is able to bring down the bloat drone down here. One of the blight haulers, I think, does get picked up, and it's only, or the bloat drone, and it's only the blight hauler afterwards. We bring this blight hauler with Fugan only shooting down to just 2 wounds remaining, and then this unit of troops doesn't get many shots anywhere else. I think we put some regular pistols into this blight hauler, and nothing happened. So our shooting phase ended up going really well for us. This Rhino has a few wounds remaining. Fugan's in range to kind of charge this. These guys can charge the Rhino. These can charge the Rhino as well, and hopefully we can dig out some of the Plague Marines with a Consolidate. So in the charge phase, we ended up doing 9 total mortal wounds to our opponent before anything even happened. We got 6 on the Rhino with the Chegarax coil brick. Our other unit of troops got into combat with the Demon Prince and this Rhino as well. And then the Wave Serpent tank shocked the Blight Hauler. Now, Fugan made the charge into this, and we played this entirely wrong. What we should have done is left a few troops right out back here. We could have absolutely made this happen, just space their bases out a little bit, and we would have been in much better shape throughout this game. And this is exactly why. So we did this wrong. We did it rushed. If we would have just taken our time, we could have wiped out this entire unit over here. All we needed to do was charge this unit of troops into, doesn't matter what it was because they can't be overwatched. If we want to tag one of the Terminators over here, that's fine. We tag the Demon Prince, and then we wrap this Rhino to the back. The Banshees are going to end up charging in over here as well, so our opponent doesn't have a good place to stage 10 of their Marines. Fugan gets in right here. His base just fit into this Rhino. And all we needed to do from here was just leave a few of our troops over here that could not be overwatched because we would have tagged this unit of Terminators back here. And our opponent would have lost this entire 12-man unit of Plague Marines, or 10-man, with the Biologist Putrefier and the Malignant Plaguecaster, and we would not have had to fight these for the remainder of the game. This is 300 some odd point unit that we left on the table because we got lazy. And looking at this now, I realized we didn't even roll the emergency disembark. He didn't lose a single model over here afterwards. So this was a botch turn, but it's fine because I would rather play in the worst case scenario and figure out if we can make it through. So the worst case scenario happens. He heroically intervenes with the Death Shroud Terminators into our Harlequin troop. We then interrupts with this big unit of Plague Marines into our Harlequin troops down here, and I think we lose like 5 or 6 of our models over here. So -1 to hit is still really nice, but they are getting lethal and sustained 5s, so that makes a big deal. This unit of Harlequin troops gets wiped except for the Troop Master, and we are able to bring down one of the Terminators. We bring down the Demon Prince himself down to just 4 wounds remaining, and then Fugan just kind of stays put. He was the one that brought down the Rhino initially to kind of trigger all of this. We're able to bring down only 4 of these Plague Marines because we lost a good chunk of our units afterwards, and then we are able to bring down this Blight Hauler, I believe, with the Solitaire and the troops, or maybe we're only able to bring it down to just 1 or 2 wounds remaining. But we did a pretty great job at just taking these objectives from our opponent. So in our opponent's turn 3, they really have to make something happen. They scored a 3 on Linchpin because we held our opponent's home field objective over here, so they only got it for this top section of the board. Now these Terminators are still in combat with, I believe, Troop Master and 1 troop, and the Demon Prince was tied in combat with the Banshees. He was able to bring down the Banshees with a big sweep, so all we have left is the Exarch and the Autarch, and then Fugan and his unit are just kind of hanging out over here. So we did tie up the Terminators enough to keep things going, and then these Plague Marines are stuck in here with our Harlequin troop afterwards. Down here at the bottom, the Death Shroud Terminators wipe out our troop units, and the Troop Master is down to just 2 wounds remaining after the Blight Hauler fell back. We used Opportunity Seized when he fell back with the Blight Hauler to get the Solitaire to the back edge of this board. We didn't roll enough to get him to the other section, but they are blocked off. I think there's a couple troop remaining from being able to be charged into. So in the charge phase, starting from the bottom, he moves the Death Shroud Terminators into the remaining couple troop and leaves the Solitaire alone. I think the last thing he wanted was to tag the Solitaire and get attacked a whole bunch. We can resurrect one of our troops if we really needed to. So moving up top here, he does take his home field objective. The Banshees and the Autarch get to fight into the Demon Prince, and we are able to bring him down finally. And then the troops over here bring down one more of the Terminators, but then they get brought down very, very handily afterwards. The Plague Marines getting to fight over here. I think this was an interrupt, or we were going back and forth. Bring down all of our Harlequin troops. The Troop Master is alive without any wounds taken. So in our turn 3, we score 13 points in primary. We got 3 points for defending our stronghold last turn, and we get engaged on all fronts and bring it down. We just got to bring down one of these Blight Haulers or Bloat Drones, easy 4 points, and we're already engaging on all sections of the board if we can bring this Wave Serpent up here. So we bring the Wave Serpent down to get some shots into the Blight Hauler. We are able to destroy that with the Bright Lance and the Shuriken Cannons, and then this also gives our opponent something they have to interact with to be kind of a roadblock for the Death Shroud Terminators to getting into our forces up here. The last thing we want is them getting like an advance in charge challenger card or something wild like that and just laying waste to all of our good stuff that we need to score for the remainder of the game. We don't have much left. With that being said, though, we have enough to score down here. We can start utilizing our Rangers and our Corsairs, our Star Weavers, to make something happen. Now, the Solitaire, who was originally over here, just gets all the way up over here with a really good advance. He's not going to be able to do anything afterwards, but if he wants to push up, we can, I believe, Heroic Intervention. The Troop Master that was in combat uses fallback shoot and charge. We shoot the fusion pistol in, we kill someone over here. A blaster fires in, these Rangers fire in, a couple of these fire dragons fire in, and we just can't seem to make contact with anything. So we're only able to bring down, I think, 2 or 3 of them up to this point. Now, the Autarch ends up throwing a free grenade over here. We bring down one of the Terminators. The other unit of Fire Dragons that was inside of this Wave Serpent gets out and fires into this Blight Hauler. So we brought down a Blight Hauler or a Bloat Drone and a Blight Hauler this turn. One more Terminator. It's a Lord of Virulence. And hopefully we can clean up this unit of troops or Plague Marines up top. Now, our opponent does score for their home field objective on the following turn, and then tries to make a push towards everything. He ends up charging the Wave Serpent very easily, brings that down. These Plague Marines survived last turn. We brought down the 2 Plague Marines, but now it's the characters, and Fugan even got in as well, and we just could not roll through their toughness 6 at this point in the game. And the Autarch stayed in combat with the Lord of Virulence. And our final turn, we just 1-inch this wall over here, hold this objective. We score 13 points on primary. We're going to get Display of Might for 4, and then we establish Locust for 2 over here. Fugan falls back from these troops. We just want to make sure that he's out of range of these Death Shroud being able to advance and charge or something ridiculous afterwards. These Fire Dragons fire into the Lord of Virulence. We fall back, shoot and charge with the Troop Master that was in combat over here, and then we're just going to try to pick up these last few guys with the Star Weaver, some Rangers as well. Now in the charge phase, we do throw the Troop Master into the Lord of Virulence. I'm pretty sure that's Typhus, but the model looks cool anyway, and still can't bring it down. We can't get devastating wounds through. We can't pass saves. It doesn't matter what it is, but these guys are locked in combat over here. We are going to hold this objective from our opponent going into turn 5, however. In the final turn, our opponent does have their 3 points from sticking their home field objective. He makes a monstrous charge with the Death Shroud Terminators into everything that we have over here. And then we draw Cleanse and Attempting Target. So we are going to attempt that target. We want to get the score as high as we possibly can. We're just going to push everything that we have over here to hold some OC on this objective. We shoot down a couple Terminators, and that is the end. So at the end of it all, we walk away the victor 94-39 with a commanding lead in primary. Over the course of this game, our opponent scored 6 points in primary through its totality, and we scored a 49 while also almost maxing our secondaries. Few thoughts about this initial list is that it is incredibly fast. The speed of this list, its ability to just dump everything that we have into our opponent's backfield, makes it very difficult for them to either deploy or stage safely on turn one. But to be honest, this felt much more like a traditional Aeldari Warhost list than it did Harlequins, but without all the bells and whistles that come with Warhost, without Skyborn Sanctuary or being able to get sustained hits on our fire dragons and everything else. But they did serve their purpose to a pretty phenomenal degree this game. Something I really enjoyed is Fuegan being the third unit of fire dragons. In this new meta, I was trying to find a place where I could get an extra unit to deal with all of these heavy hitters and vehicles out there. And it seemed like I was struggling between whether I leave another unit of fire dragons on foot or bring it out of reserves, or just add in Fuegan and let him hop in the Wave Serpent with that unit itself. Beyond this, the Howling Banshees kind of serve as the fourth unit of fire dragons. The Autarch and the Banshees themselves are just a great piece to add, and that free strat makes a huge difference. Being able to throw a grenade and get on average 3 mortal wounds, then flip one of your dice with the aspect token to an auto wound with the fusion rifle means we can very realistically, on a low end, drop 7 damage on a Rhino or whatever vehicle we need to, and then charge to get the remaining. If we roll a 4-up, we're bringing it down to begin with. So these units are really, really nice in this new meta. Again, it's to be decided if Fuegan is the guy over another unit of fire dragons, but for the purposes of this game and what we've been doing, I've really, really been enjoying him. His Resurrect is also very, very useful if you want to just run him solo and get our unit count up just a little bit. I can see a lot of cases where this is pretty great, and you could play him hyper aggressively. I'm still in love with the 2 bricks themselves. The Chegarax Coil brick being just a heavy hitter, high damage dealer, and then the Shadow Seer brick being sort of a disruptor. Something I really enjoy about the Shadow Seer brick is typically we're going to position it in the mid board and push our opponent's home field objective. Now, when you're looking at a lot of these games, you'll notice that our natural expansion is typically across from our opponent's home field objective. So if we are pushing that unit up, we may be stealing some primary from them on their home field, but we're also protecting our natural expansion as well. So even if we're just going in to kind of throw that unit away, do some modest damage, it's okay because it allows us to score primary for the following couple turns. And then we can play the real game on another section of the board on maybe our opponent's natural expansion, and at the same time protect our home field. So it's really just about dividing the board up in different halves with these 2 units and just making sure that we're scoring consistently throughout this game. And I think you see that on the scoreboard. Something a little bit unique about this list is it has a lack of trash. There aren't a ton of units, but everything seems to be able to trade 1 for 1. This does lend us to a much more aggressive game plan because we have to create a disparity in units instead of just having them on the board from the get-go. The -1 to hit was pretty crucial for both sides, and it's pretty obnoxious. It really skews the math. I'm strongly considering special weapons now instead of the Harlequin blades for this very specific fact. If you're going into a unit that you know is going to fall, or that you are not going to be able to bring down in its entirety, sometimes that -1 to hit is just the better call. And against something like all of these toughness 6 and toughness 7 bodies, that means we can still be wounding them on 5s while also applying a -1 to hit buff on them or debuff on them afterwards, as opposed to just the -1 to hit or just the wounding on 5s that we would get from the blades. The math is very similar between the two of them. The blades are traditionally getting you maybe 1 or 2 more devastating wounds throughout that process, but they're falling behind in real wounds, if that makes any sense. So I am strongly considering going back to the special weapons, especially after playing a couple games into Death Guard. That being said, the breakpoints are very tight for both the blades and the special weapons. We are so close to killing a unit on average pretty regularly, but if we roll subpar, it can really spell doom for this game plan. You want to make sure that you are not just sending in units to 1v1 your opponent. Something like the Autarch and the Banshees, for example. We throw grenades. We get those 3 mortal wounds. Then we auto wound with the rifle. Maybe we're going to bring them 7 to 9 wounds down, and then we have to charge for the remainder. Well, what if they just make the invulnerable save on the fusion rifle? Now we have a very low likelihood of bringing that down in combat. So you want to make sure that you're backing these units up with something else just in case, whether it's a Star Weaver or a Harlequin troop with some fusion pistols or something to put some long range firepower down. That's the way that we kind of balance out these rolls. But again, those breakpoints are pretty close. Just make sure that you're putting enough firepower into the units you need to bring down, because if they do get to clap you back, it's not great for us. This did feel strangely similar to Knights, but not quite as durable. Those extra 4 wounds the Knights are bringing over the Blight Haulers and the Bloat Drones or the Rhinos or the Demon Prince make a very big difference, and I felt it in these 2 games. I would still run this same list or something very similar to it into Knights. I think it covers both aspects very well, but again, you may want to add a extra unit or 2 to shoot into a Knight as opposed to this. Now, that also being said, while they didn't feel as durable, I think it's because most of their strats aren't just that efficient into us. They're not bad by any means. The auto explode caught us a couple times, but the stratagem to reroll the amount of dice for blast weapons doesn't feel super useful. I kind of hoped my opponent would use it and waste their CP, because if they are shooting at one of our units, they're probably bringing it down without that. And the -1 damage didn't seem that worthwhile. It's good against the Solitaire and the Troop Masters, but everything else is pretty much Melta and damage 1 attacks, so there's not a ton of usefulness for them afterwards. Heroic Intervention and the counteroffensive stratagem were very good into us, though, and if they have access to grenades, they're always great into a bunch of 1 wound models like our expensive Harlequin troops. The Death Shroud Terminators and the Lord of Contagion are just bananas. You have to watch out for the Overwatch. You have to screen the board whenever possible. Make sure that they can't come down and 6-inch deep strike you. We don't have a ton of trash units, so that's why I prefer this more aggressive style of approach. I would love to have those Death Shroud have to land on either their natural expansion or their home field late in the game, and then we can just abandon them, run, feed them some units to keep them in position, and just score for the remainder of the game. But if your game plan is to put everything you can into them, I just wouldn't bother. I'd make them stand on objectives and never move for the remainder of the game. But overall, this wasn't the nightmare matchup I was originally thinking, but I am interested to try a game with something a little bit more Harlequin focused. Now, this army, I know it seems like there aren't a bunch of Harlequins in it, has upwards of almost 40 Harlequin units. If you were to run an MSU list and you maxed out all of your 5-man squads and put them in Star Weavers, you would have right around 40 Harlequin troops. So We are in okay shape going into that, so don't at me. I know this doesn't look super Harlequin friendly, but it absolutely is. But if you are going towards the mono Quinn approach, or as many Harlequin units as you can, Skyweavers, Voidweavers, all of that, I don't believe that matchup would be great for us at all. I think the Fire Dragons are a huge piece to solving this puzzle. But on the flip side of all of that, it's kind of wild that bloat drones and blight haulers are like 90 and 100 points, and the Void Weaver is still sitting at 125. Again, this army, both Death Guard and Knights, are just so cost effective. It's a little bit much. We used to have the upper hand in unit count, and just because of the cost of a lot of our units and their lethality not being super great, I felt like this more heavy-handed list, this hyper-aggressive list, was the best approach. And as of the past few games, I've got about 4, I think 5 games in with this list now. I think this may be the call. But I hope you enjoyed. I'm trying my best to solve this new meta, but I feel like I'm just running in circles. We have a few new games coming out in the works or already completed against some other meta terrorizing armies. We had one already against Blood Angels. We should have Thousand Suns coming up soon, possibly Necrons and Imperial Guard. So just kind of stay tuned over the next month or so, and we should be getting those out. But thank you again. I appreciate you more than you could possibly imagine. Please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. Any little bit always helps, and I'll see you all in the next video.